pop-up hangout from the Blogstock Festival, and we're about to start with a talk. Alex Richards, aka Best Dad I Can Be, is going to be talking, and we're not going to be able to cover all of it, by the way, because I've got to slip away and do something myself, but he's going to be talking on blogger and subject consistent quality content, and I think he's going to be doing it with his son, so pretty much over to him. Mark,
we're ready.
We're ready.
Thank you. Just wait for this person to come in here. Morning. I've received the go-ahead from my technical crew here, so I think we can start. No, it's all right. That is my confidence. Well, thank you very much. It sees our fee reduced from 0 to even less. Thank you. So what I'm going to do this morning is, my name is Mark Richards. Okay, it's my son Alex who's going to speak after me. If you want the Twitter handle for this, it's @bestdadicanbe. On Twitter, bestdadicanbe.com is the blog. Okay, I'm going to talk about content for about half an hour, creating content, and then as I've been writing about Alex for the best part of his life, for 11 years since he was 4 years old, he's going to talk for 15 minutes about what it's actually like to be the subject of the content. Because I think quite a lot of people start their blogs and wonder, how am I going to continue with this blog forever and ever and ever? Alex is kind of the proof that you can actually do that and still retain a relationship with whoever you might be writing about. I'm also going to give you a bit of history as to how I became a writer. I write full-time now. Blogging accounts for about 30% of what I do. How I became a writer and how I ended up talking to you this morning, and actually listing slightly to one side. But Alex, so I'll end up in your lap by the end of this speech. I'm going to gradually sort of move across with the slope of the ground. Okay. So at the risk of giving Alex far too much information, far too much ammunition to fire at his dad, I used to be quite a dull person. I had a wife, still have, she's back there. I had a wife, 3 children, a mortgage, business in financial services, a few suits, and 14 stripy ties. And I also had this small voice inside me, which I think a lot of people have, and this small voice said, "Let me out, I'm a writer." And from time to time I did. I woke up one morning in the spring of 2003 with a midlife crisis, which was unusual because I was only 20 at the time. And I started writing a weekly column about my family, a humorous look at family life from a dad's point of view. And then in Christmas 2006, I self-published a book of the columns. That was Chronicles of a Desperate Dad. And that did reasonably well. For one glorious 3-month period, it was the best-selling self-published book in the UK. But if any of you have written a book, or any of you are thinking of writing a book, I can tell you that writing a book is 2% of the effort. The other 98% of the effort is publicising the book. And doing the radio interviews, making sure Waterstones have got copies, all that sort of thing, was absolutely turning into a full-time job. And I already had a business. By that time, I had some fairly impatient clients that wanted me back. So it was kind of time to put the dream on one side and go back to real life, go back to the exciting world of financial services. I did sort of still let the small voice out from time to time. I carried on writing the column, and when there was a full moon, I crept out and I did some stand-up comedy as well. So any travel bloggers here may think they're really brave because they've cliff dived in Acapulco or something like that, or run with the bulls in Pamplona. I have performed stand-up comedy in Whitby. a town that regards the Wicker Man as a gentle warmer. Sorry, nobody from Whitby by any chance, is there? So I went back to the exciting world of financial services. And then on October the 6th, 2009, at about 6 o'clock on a Tuesday afternoon, my brother died of cancer. And his wife asked me to deliver the eulogy. My brother had been an army officer, and the crematorium was absolutely packed with other army officers. As you might imagine, stiff, formal, serious. I'd written the really best speech that I could possibly write, but my speech was light-hearted and whimsical. It was full of stories about us growing up together. You know, how Michael taught me to play cricket, and then when I became a teenager, how he taught me to drink beer and chase girls, and 20 years later I finally caught one. And as I stood up to speak, you know, I looked out on this audience of like 200 serious faces, 200 regimental ties, and I thought, I've really, really badly misjudged this. And I almost lost my nerve. Anyway, they started laughing as soon as I started speaking, and I spoke for about 10 minutes. And as I went away from the crematorium, an old man came up to me, still ramrod straight this guy, and he said to me, "I was your brother's first commanding officer. Best eulogy I've heard. Best eulogy I've heard. I'm at the age now where I go to a funeral every week. Best eulogy I've heard." And those 4 words were the 4 words that turned me into a writer. Because as I drove away from the crematorium, and we all have moments like this in our lives, I realised that I either pursued what I really, really wanted to do, or I forgot about it for good. So I sold my business, sent all my stripy ties to the charity shop, and I started writing. I had no clients, and I had no business plan either. I didn't have an absolute faith that I could write. I did believe I could produce content that people would want to read. Which was really good, because that was the day when content became something that I did not to record the lives of my children, but to actually pay a few bills. So if I didn't produce content consistently, and good content consistently, I wouldn't get paid. So along the way, has it been easy? No. Has the cash flow been a bit rocky at times? Yes, it has. But here I am this morning talking to you, so clearly something must have gone right. I continue to produce the weekly newspaper column, which is also Best Dad I Can Be, on the blog. Okay. And I also ghostwrite blogs for 3 other people. I write for a financial services company, I write for an employment agency, and I write for a management consultant come business coach. So, and I produce those blogs weekly or fortnightly for other people. So I produce quite a lot of content, and I'm really proud of the fact that in my nearly 12 years of writing my blog and 4 years of the business blog, I've never ever missed a deadline. I've forgotten that the spuds were on and I burnt the bloody big hole in the bottom of the pan. I've forgotten to collect my children from school. I've never forgotten to get my blog in on time. Which says something about the priorities in my life, as Alex will explain to you. So how do I do that? How do I produce that level of consistent content? There are 8 key points that I use. Okay? What I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the 8 points in theory, and then I'll use the blogs to illustrate how they work for me in practice. And Alistair, this is new content, so make sure your damn machine is working. Okay. Number 1, know your audience. Know who you are writing for. Okay? I sort of stumbled gradually into the audience for Best Dad. As you'll hear later, I now know it very, very well indeed. But if I start work for a client, there are 3 questions that I want to answer before we start writing. Who are we writing for? What do they want to hear? Not what do you want to write, what do they want to hear? What tone of voice do they want to hear it in? You'll hear me talk a lot about voice in the next 15 and 20 minutes. Voice is very important. You have to develop, number two is you have to develop a particular tone of voice for your blog. How do you do that? You do that by writing consistently, and you do that by opening up a little bit and giving a little bit of yourself away, by sharing your hopes and dreams and fears and ambitions with your readers. I would say very strongly that if you are too good to be true, you are too boring to be worth reading about. Okay, you need to keep your voice consistent. If I use a newspaper analogy, if I go and read an article in The Guardian, I expect to find an article that's written in the style of The Guardian. I don't want one that's so sensationalist that it should be in The Express, so simple it should be in The Sun, or so complicated that it should be in the Harvard Law Review. I go there expecting to find what I expect to find. Number four, you need to publish consistently as well. Okay? So if I read the Sunday Times, I expect to read it on a Sunday morning. We do a kind of deal, don't we? They agree to publish it on a Sunday morning, and I agree to buy it on a Sunday morning and stagger home under its colossal weight. It is, after all, called the Sunday Times. It's not called the when I can be asked to write something Times. So putting those 2 points together, one of the key elements is to give your readers what they want when they expect to receive it. Okay. Point number 5 is keep the quality high. Yeah, keep the quality high. Ernest Hemingway said, "Writing is rewriting." I am big on that. Okay, I edit, rewrite ruthlessly. Okay, keep the quality high. Make sure that your spelling, your grammar, punctuation is right. Okay, there's an interesting article, if anybody Googles for it, on the BBC about how much money businesses and blogs lose through just having inaccurate spelling and grammar. Really startlingly large figures. Having said that, everybody has got a blind spot about something in spelling and grammar, whether it's your, there. Who's got a blind spot about your, there, or it's, admit it. You know? Yeah, okay. I've got a one-page sheet, crib sheet. If you want to email me afterwards, I'll send it to you. Okay? I will freely admit that I cannot spell the word friends. Okay? Right, I write it down, I write I-E, it looks wrong. I write E-I, it looks wrong. I just, I don't know why it is. I should have grown out of it by now, but I haven't. I always struggle with the word friends. Point number 6, you need to create characters that people can engage with. Okay? Characters that people can engage with do not necessarily have to be likable characters. Anybody watching the American series of House of Cards? Yes. Yeah? Okay. I really like Frank Underwood. Okay? Don't you tell me what happens, because we're kind of halfway through series 2. Okay? But I like Frank Underwood, right? So far, he has murdered 2 people, and if he's ever told the truth, I haven't spotted it. Okay? But let me ask you a question. Who would you rather have round to dinner? Frank Underwood or Winky the President? Right? I also have a soft spot for Hannibal Lecter. Okay? There's a man that could deal with criticism. Okay? I have a soft spot for Hannibal Lecter, and I have an enormous soft spot for Lisbeth Salander in Dragon Tattoo. Particularly on page 235, where she ties that bloke up and tattoos his chest. Alex, it's 3 years before you can read that. Okay? What's next? Write about trivial things. That may sound like a contradiction in terms, because I've said keep the quality high, and now I'm telling you to write about trivial things. Okay? Why do you need to write about trivia? It's dead simple, because there isn't enough important stuff happening to give you enough material to blog consistently. Okay, if you think about a parent blogger, what's important? Christmas, birthday, sports day, nativity play, somebody falls over and goes to A&E. Okay, well, congratulations, that's 5 blog posts for the year. There's not enough, so you've got to be good at writing about trivial things. Besides which, in the life of a 5-year-old, a dead goldfish is very, very important. Point number 8 is about how to write. Okay, there's a session going on right now about how to find your writing mojo. Okay, well, I don't wish to undermine anybody else, but I'll tell you how to find your writing mojo. Sit down at your keyboard and start writing. That's how to do it. Okay, Stephen King says, and he's dead right, amateurs sit and wait for inspiration. The rest of us just get up and go to work. In my experience, if you sit at your keyboard, inspiration will turn up, but you need to write an invitation, and for me, that invitation needs to be about 500 words long, but it will turn up if you start writing. Okay, let's turn that into the theory into practice. Okay, Alistair, can we have an advert break while I have a drink of water? Send me the link, buddy.
Yeah.
Let's turn the theory into some practice. Okay? So I'm going to use my own blog, and I'm going to use the business blog that I write for a guy called Ed Reed. Okay? So Ed's a lovely guy. He's a business coach, a management consultant, and every Friday morning he publishes the blog, which I ghostwritten for him through the week. Okay? Know your audience. Ed works in a limited geographical area. His audience is the owners and directors of small and medium-sized businesses in and around York. So his audience is only maybe 250 people every week. But anyone that runs a niche blog will know that you do not need a large audience to be successful. I will just show you later on that blog has been absolutely instrumental in building a really successful blog for Ed. The audience for Best Dad is slightly larger. It's every parent in the world. Okay? Based on a mixture of sort of anecdotal evidence and analytical evidence, okay, I now know my audience for Best Dad really, really well. Okay? I feel now with people just coming in that I should kind of put myself on Google on iPlayer or something like that so they can rewind me to the beginning. That's forward through the crap. I know my audience really, really well. So my audience for Best Dad is predominantly female. Okay? Predominantly female. 85% of my Twitter followers are female. They're aged 35 to 45. Typically, they are educated to degree standard. They're married or in a stable relationship, and they've got a couple of children. Okay? Interestingly, there is one word which appears in the Twitter profile of 33% of my followers. Would anybody like to speculate on what that word is?
Mummy.
Wrong.
Parent.
Wrong.
Wine.
That is absolutely correct. 33% of my followers on Twitter have the word wine in their profile. Fantastic Twitter profile. Bad mummy, red wine drinker. I absolutely know I can engage with that person. Okay. For your bonus points, okay, there is another word. If you add that word to wine, it takes the figure well up above 40%. What? Nobody help her. What is that word? No. Anybody else? No. they're married with children, and the love it doesn't bloody come into it, does it? The word is gin. Okay? So wine plus gin covers 42% of my Twitter followers. Okay? If you're a parent, you will absolutely understand why that is. Okay? But I know my audience really, really well, both for Ed's blog, for any blog that I write, for my own blog. I have a real picture of who I'm writing for, and I think that is very, very important. Okay, develop a voice, number 2. When I first met Ed, I stumbled across a question which has informed kind of everything that I do for clients ever since. The question was, if I met you at a party, what impression would you like to go away with? Yeah, because we've all been to a party and you've been pinned in a corner by a man. It's because it's always a man who just tells you that he makes widgets and he's the most boring person in the world. Yeah, and there's several people nodding. You know, what's Ed's voice? So he's a nice guy. He loves his family. He's knowledgeable. He's good to do business with. He has a sense of humour, and he's very open. And that comes across in his blog. His blog doesn't sell. His blog does what every good blog should do. It educates, it entertains, it informs, and above all things, it seeks to start a conversation. Okay, let me give you a great tip for keeping your voice consistent, and in fact for improving your writing, just generally. Whatever you write, read it out loud. Does anybody do that? Okay, read it out loud. If it doesn't sound right when it's read out loud, if it doesn't sound natural when it's read out loud, then it isn't right and it needs rewriting. Okay? Having confessed to you that I can't spell friend, let me further confess that whatever I write, I read out loud in a Welsh accent. Okay? Because a lot of my writing is meant to be mildly humorous, it sounds funnier to me. My wife is looking at me. She's looking at me with this expression that says, "I'm married this person. Is there any way out of it? You know, darling, I shut myself in the office and I read out loud in the Welsh accent. Sometimes in homage to Monty Python's Four Yorkshiremen sketch, I will also try a broad Yorkshire accent. But reading out loud helps me focus on what I've written. Okay? Honestly, it is a really, really useful tip. It really is. Okay. Publish consistently. Okay. Oh, sorry. Just on your voice when you're writing, I try to write as well without any passive sentences. You all know what the difference between active and passive sentences is. Yeah. An active sentence is "I bit the dog." Okay, sorry if you're from Animal Liberation. I bit the dog. A passive sentence is "the dog was bitten by me." Okay, active sentence is much, much easier to read. Okay, publish consistently. Ed's blog is published every Friday morning at 8 o'clock without fail. If you publish consistently, you prove to potential clients, whether they're travel brands or whatever, that you can deliver. Okay? 6 months ago, Ed took a phone call. The guy said to him, "You don't know me. I've been reading your blog every Friday morning for 12 months. Okay? My business turns over £12 million a year. I think you could help me." Ed said, "Where are you? I'll be there in 10 minutes. You know, the money he will earn from that client will pay for the blog until I am playing a golden harp. You know, or until I'm being toasted over some coals. I suspect the latter might actually apply. But if you publish consistently, you will absolutely prove to people that you can deliver. Okay. Keep the quality high. Okay. When I first started writing my newspaper column, the then editor of the newspaper gave me 11 words of advice. Okay. These are really useful words of advice for any form of writing. Okay, I apologise. I'm just going to swear mildly. Okay, but what he said to me was, "Get it right, keep it tight, cut out the shite." That works. That works. And of those 11 words of wisdom, the most important are "keep it tight." edit and edit and edit. I'm doing a session on editing at a conference in Nantes in a few weeks' time, which I don't think can be mentioned here, can it? The Travel Bloggers Conference. You know, if you want my notes on editing and why it's important for a blog, again, just contact me through Twitter. Okay. Editing and keeping it tight is also the way to inject humour into what you write. Okay. If you haven't got a joke within 2 lines, you haven't got a joke at all. Okay? So keeping tight is really important. And that brings me on to my 2 favourites, character and trivia. Okay? 4 or 5 years ago, I was in Next with my daughter. She was 13 at the time. Okay? I held up what I believe to be a particularly fine shirt. It was purple, green, and orange stripes. It's just astonishing that I don't write a fashion blog, isn't it? Purple, green, and orange stripes. What do you think of this, darling? I said to her across the shop. She shouted back to me across the shop, Daddy, there are dead people with more fashion sense than you. She's a really strong character, and people engage with strong characters. Okay? Now, the parenting textbooks will tell you that I am committing a cardinal sin. The parenting textbooks say, don't, whatever you do, characterize your children. Don't say, she's the clever one, she's the sporty one, and she's the naughty one, because you'll do real damage to them. As a blogger, I say, nonsense, you have to do it. Okay? Let me introduce you to the 5 characters that make up my blog. Okay? One of them's my wife. There's a fair chance I'll end this speech with a black eye. Okay? I don't use the real names when I'm writing about it. Okay, so character number 1 is Tom, my eldest son. He's the 9 brave but can't tidy his bedroom, now doing engineering at University 1. Okay? Jessica, the skirt too short, feisty, argumentative, teenage girl, now also at university, costing us a fortune. What? Okay? Ben, the lovely, caring, understanding, empathetic, shortly about to speak to you, the youngest son. One. Jane, the desperately holding it all together despite being married to a useless husband. One. And me, the sluts on the sofa, drinks too much red wine, watches too much football, eats too much cheese, utterly hopeless and DIY one. Those are exaggerations, slight exaggerations, except in my case, it's obviously an enormous exaggeration. But the readers really identify with strong character. Trivia. Write about trivia. Okay? Again, I come back to the point that if you're writing about the big things, there just aren't enough big things to go around. Okay? Besides which, trivia, writing about trivia helps you capture what are the really, really important moments. If I'm camcorder dad, what do I do? You know, I video Christmas, I video Sports Day, I video the Nativity play, I video the birthday. I do not capture that pivotal moment where this 12-year-old son says to you, Dad, give me the screwdriver. You are bloody useless. Make a cup of tea. I will fix it. Right? To any parents, that is an enormously pivotal moment. Okay? Because I'm a writer, I can capture that. Okay? How many parents are here? How many people are parents? Okay. Last week, eldest son is back with us, okay, and he's 20 now, and he just eats a prodigious amount of my cheese and drinks my red wine. So I said to him, cut me a piece of cheese, will you, Dad? And he cuts me a piece of cheese, which is bloody well transparent, it is so thin and small. And I said to him, just you wait, when I come round to your house in 10 years' time, I'm going to do real damage to your cheese and wine. He says to me, Dad, I want you to come round to my house in 10 years' time. Right? And it takes me a split second to realise what he said. What he said to me is, Dad, don't drink so much wine and eat so much cheese that you die prematurely. Right? That's a colossal moment in family life, isn't it? That's a colossal moment. Could I ever capture that if I camcorder Dad? Not a chance. Can I write about it? Yeah, I can. Yeah, I can. And I have done. And it brought tears to my eyes when I was writing about it. That is the enormous privilege of being a blogger, that you can capture a moment like that. It is an absolute privilege. Alex will tell you when he speaks that I write down pretty much everything that happens in family life. Pretty much everything. That often means that I'm working on more than one blog post at a time. And that's great. That's really good, because it's a guarantee of keeping the quality high. Because if I don't think a blog post is good enough, I will ruthlessly get rid of it. Okay? In the old Hollywood saying, I will murder my baby. Okay? Please don't anybody tweet Mark Richards says murder your baby. Okay? Because now that social services and GCHQ monitor everything we do, you know, we will be invaded by the police in the very near future. Okay? But I will ruthlessly get rid of something that's not good enough. Okay. So that is pretty much Best Dad. I know my audience. I know what I'm good at. I create strong characters. I write about trivia. What's the net result of that? The net result is that people say nice things. Okay? I hope you don't mind me saying this. I read your blog on the toilet. No, I absolutely don't mind someone saying that. I take that as a compliment, because that's exactly what I'm trying to do, is give somebody 5 minutes respite in the middle of a stressful day. My husband says, I can't read your blog in bed anymore, I'm lolling too much. That is the most fantastic compliment. I am truly sorry about the state of your marriage, but thanks for what you said about my blog. Okay? That's pretty much all I know about content. We'll happily answer questions afterwards. Just before I introduce Alex, let me say just a couple of things. Number, whatever you write, whether you write a fashion blog or a food blog or a family blog or a travel blog, write the very best blog that you can. The internet and e-books and the ever-increasing demand for content has given us all just the most fantastic opportunity. But right now, anybody can write a book and anybody can start a blog. And the trouble is, anybody has done. So good enough isn't good enough anymore. You need to be outstanding. If you can do that, the world is absolutely your oyster. I hope that I have been a little bit towards outstanding in my new job as my son's warm-up man. So I'm going to introduce Alex now. You'll absolutely understand. I have a tear in my eye when I do this. I just want to say one thing to you, is that Alex's speaking so far has been at school. Okay? The audience has been refined, restrained, okay, well behaved, and applause has been muted, if not frowned on. Okay? If any of you would like to whoop and whistle when he gets up to speak, he would love it, I am sure. And he would just raise a finger to his headmistress. Yeah. So I'm enormously proud. He's going to talk to you about what it's like to be on the receiving end of being written about. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll sit down, and here's Alex.
Right.
With both bottles of water.
Thanks, guys. That's the slightly overweight, watches too much football, slumps on the settee, useless at DIY work. He said he was exaggerating, I'll let you decide that. We can't spell friend either. I learned this in year 4, Dad. A friend is there to the end. I hope that helps. So as you've heard, my name's Alex. Unless you're reading the blog, in which case it's Ben. So that's the first thing I've got from my dad. Multiple personalities. I was 4 when Dad started writing. So it's always been a part of my life. When you're that age, it's hard to remember when you become aware of things. There were 2 incredibly irritating people that seemed to be in our house a lot. I gradually became aware that they are my brother and sister, and I was stuck with them. I also became aware that my dad had, I don't know, some sort of sickness, that he suddenly had to go off and write all the time. The first time was when Speedy died. Speedy was my sister's pet goldfish. Obviously, like all family pets, there was a state funeral. Solemnly gathered around the toilet, all 5. Speedy was wrapped in tissue paper. My sister was upset. She was crying. How will Speedy go to heaven if you flush him down the toilet? Mum smiled at her little girl. Goldfish go for their own special watery heaven, she said. What did you say, Dad? Goldfish go for their own special watery heaven? Absolutely brilliant, he said. And he pulled the notebook out of his pocket and started writing. I can get a column out of this, he said, abandoning the funeral and running downstairs to his laptop. Clearly, my dad wasn't like other dads. Other dads don't jump for joy when their 6-year-old son gets arrested. We were going to Greece on holiday. Mum was giving Dad his instructions. You need to pack Alex's bag for the plane. But there was football on TV. So Dad asked me if I could do it myself. I didn't see why not. And I packed what any normal 6-year-old boy would pack. My pyjamas, all the sweets I could find in my sister's bedroom, and my 2 favourite guns. They got quite excited when my bag went through a scanner. The security guard was jumping up and down like he'd just captured Osama bin Laden. You'd think at this point that my dad would be rushing across to rescue me, or at least write a check for my bail. No, he was punching the air and scribbling that damn notebook. At the first instance, I'm still receiving counselling. Came a column called The Accidental Terrorist. That's how it went on. Whatever happens in family life, Dad wrote about it. Dad wrote about it. It got published in the paper, and later on the blog. My dad's big on tradition, especially at Christmas. He always made us go caroling. It's tradition, he said. It's freezing. He promised us hot chocolate when we got back, drive us out instantly. And we did really well, because we went to school that was tremendously old-fashioned and had a proper carol service, so we knew all the carols, real ones. We were the only carol singers in the area who knew something different to "We Wish You a Merry Christmas." So we cleaned up. 2 verses of Silent Night, 2 quid. Thank you very much. On to the next house. But the inevitable happened. My brother and sister became teenagers. Go carol singing with their dad. What? Their friends would never speak to them again. So, 2 of my friends were recruited. I saw a new side of them. Their parents gave them hot chocolate before they went out. Clearly, I had a deprived childhood. But eventually, Mrs. Ingham's hot chocolate wore off. We got cold. One more house, Dad said. We banged on the door, revved up Silent Night one last time, and an old lady answered. Yes, an old lady, our target market. Well, that's beautiful, she said. Do you know any others? We rattled through away in the major. Well, you're easily the best carol singers we've had this year. What are you collecting for? What? We were 9-year-old boys. It was Christmas. The shops were full of toys. Obviously, we were collecting for ourselves. But that didn't seem to be the answer she was looking for. Which charity are you collecting for, she asked. The hospice, a voice answered. It was Dad standing at the bottom of the drive. It was news to me, but it worked on the old lady. She handed over £5. Dad let us keep the money. If anyone hears from the hospice, they'll let him escape. He still owes you a £5. So that's it. Dad's written about me, or my brother and sister, every week for over 11 years. But clearly, in that time, we've changed. So how do I feel about my whole life being documented for the world to read? Well, when you're 6 or 7, you say, "What's Dad doing?" And Mum says, "He's writing his column," and you just shrug and go back to Cartoon Network. When you're 10 or 11, you know what he's doing. You know it gets published somewhere, but, well, he's your dad. That's what he does. But when you become 13 or 14, you know what he's doing. You know it gets published, and you know it's about you. And you're a teenager, not always the most rational species on the planet. You may think that at some points we never wanted to be written about. And you'd be right. That's where talking becomes really important. A few weeks ago, Dad wrote a column about me losing my temper. And I did. And I punched the door. Is there any man here who can say they haven't done it? Anyway, I punched the door. And yes, I burned my hand. So Dad wrote about when he punched the door and broke his hand, and then told the doctor he'd fallen over. But clearly, that one didn't show me in the best light. So Dad said, "I've written this, do you mind if I publish it?" And I read it, and it didn't show me the best light. But I was okay, because it was real life. And I knew that I'd read it one day, when my teenage son lost his temper and punched his bedroom. Dad wrote about when my brother Dan came home drunk for the first time. And in fairness, that was really, really funny. Although, Mum didn't see the funny side when he threw up on our lounge carpet. Dad didn't write about the first time my sister got drunk. I was only 12, I could tell from the phone calls that it was serious. No, in case you're wondering, I'm not drunk for the first time yet, but I've seen Dad's editorial calendar, and apparently it happens next year, July 10th. So, what does Dad's blog give me, apart from multiple personalities? Memories. Memories of myself. One of the questions you ask yourself as a teenager is, what was I like as a child? Well, I know. So I can read the blog, and not only remember the incidents, I can remember my thoughts and my feelings as well. Hear the words that were spoken. And it's given me an insight into the future as well. Right now, I read what my dad's written from a child's perspective. But one day, I'll be a dad. And maybe, by that time, my dad's just a memory or a picture on the mantelpiece. But I'll be able to sit my son and daughter down and say, read this, your granddad wrote it. Yes, that was me that punched the door, but here's the one where Auntie Elma sits in dog pee. And Uncle Dan comes home drunk for the first time. My dad's going to keep writing. It's what he does. It's as much part of him as going grey and being overweight. Sorry. And of course, if he does keep writing, that gives me a huge problem. My brother and sister are now at university. Dad wants to keep the blog going until I leave home. He thinks he's under pressure being followed by his son. I have to do or say something funny every week. Either that, or they have another baby. blog has given me an absolute unique record of my childhood. Not just the big things like Christmas, birthdays, and the nativity play, but the little things as well. Carol singing, the disaster at the airport, and yes, sweet dead goldfish. So I'd say to you, whatever you write, keep writing. Because I know that telling your story and recording your vision, whether it's a travel blog, or a parent blog, or any other blog, will stand the test of time. You're creating a legacy, something that's a real gift. Not just for you and your readers, but one day for your children as well. Thank you. Woo!
Okay, I'll do questions. Alex will discuss with his agent his film deal or something like that. Just any questions you've got on anything we've talked about. I don't know what time it is because I'm wearing a wristband instead of a watch.
It's past 11.
So until somebody comes in and kicks it out, fire away with any questions you might have. Yeah.
That's really great. What you talk about your demographic, so you know your audience really well. Where do you get that information?
Right. I found a site that gave me some really, really useful Twitter analysis. I have a feeling if you want to email me, okay, it's mark@bestdadicanbe.com. Okay, if you email me, I'll find the site and send it to you. You can get some fantastic analysis on Twitter, and I think I got it from simplymeasured.com. Okay, but I wouldn't swear to it. But I have got a slide which absolutely breaks down my demographic, and I've got 1,927 Twitter followers. There's two bastards deserted overnight. I might have 1,928 by now, I don't know. But if you've got that number, you get some really accurate stuff. So I think it was Simply Measured, but there were two sites that I used and kind of put them together. But I would say that I'm not a big believer in getting hung up on just the analytics for a blog. I think, certainly speaking to the people that I write for, that the anecdotal is really useful as well. For example, Ed, because of his blog, got a big piece of publicity in the Yorkshire Post. Now you can't measure that on analytics, but it's clearly of enormous value to it. The blog gives there enormous authority. And the fact that, as I said before, the fact that he delivers consistently really does. Alistair, who was it at Rotterdam? Was it Rochelle? Who got flown around the world by Four Seasons?
Oh Lord, I can't remember, but yeah.
There's one of the at the TVU conference at Rotterdam last year. One of the, I think she's called Rochelle Lucas. Four Seasons flew around the world and on a $25,000 trip, and they did it simply because they said to her, "We've read your blog every week, and we've read everything you've tweeted, and we know you'll deliver what we want." And so the consistency side of it is really, really important. But email me and I'll find it for you. Yeah.